Adrian did not smile when I said marry me. That was what unsettled me most. Most men would have laughed, thought it was heartbreak talking. But he looked at me as if I had spoken some old promise back to life. Rain slid down the shoulders of his worn black jacket while traffic hissed over wet pavement behind us. For a long moment neither of us moved. I could hear my own breathing, sharp and unsteady, and the church bell still echoing somewhere beyond the storm. Then Adrian opened the passenger door of his pickup and said, "Get in, Claire." It should have sounded reckless. Instead it sounded like shelter. I should tell you I hesitated. I did not. Maybe betrayal makes strangers feel safer than family. Maybe I had already stepped too far into the dark to turn back. I climbed into the truck smelling motor oil and cedar. The seat cracked with age, an old country song humming low from the radio. Nothing about it looked like the beginning of destiny. It looked like a poor mechanic's life, which made what happened next feel even more impossible. We drove 20 minutes north through rain-slick streets, past diners and gas stations and quiet neighborhoods where porch lights glowed warm in the storm. I wrapped my arms around myself and stared out the window. "Do you always accept marriage proposals from women in wedding makeup?" I asked. His mouth almost curved. "Only when they mean it." I turned to him. "You do realize I was angry. Angry people often tell the truth." His answer sat between us heavier than I wanted. We stopped outside a little all-night diner off Interstate 87 where truckers drank coffee at midnight. Neon buzzed in the windows. Inside, the waitress called Adrian honey and brought him black coffee without asking. That should have told me he came there often, that he had roots I did not understand. But all I noticed was the way everyone seemed to lower their voices when he walked in. We sat in a vinyl booth by the fogged-up glass. I told him everything. About Vanessa, Preston, my family's silence, the humiliation burning under my skin. Adrian listened without interrupting, fingers resting around a chipped coffee mug. When I finished, he asked one question. "If you could erase tonight, would you?" I opened my mouth and stopped, because somehow I knew I would not. He leaned in slightly. "Then do not let them write the ending." The waitress refilled our cups and left a slice of apple pie neither of us ordered. Adrian slid it toward me. "Eat." I laughed. "You order people around a lot?" "Only when they forget their worth." I do not know why that nearly made me cry. Maybe because no one had ever spoken to me like I was something to protect. Hours passed in that diner while rain softened outside. We talked about nothing and everything. He told me he fixed engines, worked long days, lived simply. Said money lies about people. Said power reveals them. Strange words for a mechanic. Stranger still was the scar near his jawline I had not noticed before, white against pale skin, as if some harder life had brushed against him and left a mark. Around 2 in the morning, he reached into his pocket and set a silver band on the table. Plain, old, worn smooth. "My grandfather's ring," he said. "I have carried it for 10 years. I stared. "You carry a wedding ring around?" I was waiting. The diner suddenly felt too small for the air in my lungs. "Adrian, I do not even know you." His gray eyes held mine. "Then learn me." Silence stretched. The coffee had gone cold. A truck roared past outside. And before reason could save me, I slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. Adrian looked at my hand as though confirming something only he understood. Then he said quietly, "Tomorrow morning there is a chapel in Westchester where the priest owes me a favor."
Owes me a favor.
Not knows me, owes me. The phrase snagged in my mind. But I was too far gone in the strange gravity of him to question it. We stepped back into the rain before dawn. The storm had passed. Manhattan shimmered in wet gold behind us. Adrian opened the truck door and paused before I climbed in. "Claire," he said, voice lower than before. "If you do this, your life changes." I looked at the ring glinting beneath a street lamp and whispered the truest thing I had said all night. It already has. And somewhere deep beneath his calm, I could have sworn. I saw a king hiding inside a poor man's smile. People think reckless decisions feel wild when you make them. The truth is the dangerous ones often arrive with eerie calm. By 8 the next morning I was standing beside Adrian in a small stone chapel in Westchester wearing yesterday's clothes. Yesterday's heartbreak still dried beneath my eyes, while sunlight spilled through stained glass in bands of blue and gold. It should have felt absurd, felt sacred. The priest was old, silver-haired, moving slower than time itself. Yet the moment Adrian stepped inside, he straightened with a strange alertness I did not understand. "You came back," he murmured to Adrian, almost under his breath. "Came back," as if this place belonged to some history I had never been invited into. Adrian only nodded. We stood before the altar while dust drifted through morning light and somewhere a pipe heater clicked in the silence.
No flowers. No guests. No orchestra.
No family. Just a woman whose life had burned down in one night and a man who looked at vows as though they weighed more than breath. "Do you take this man?" Father Donnelly began, voice low and worn, and I expected panic to rise. Instead, I heard my own answer steady and clear.
Ido.
Adrian did not hesitate.
Ido.
His voice sounded less like a promise and more like an oath. The silver ring from the diner slid fully into place. His hand was warm when he took mine. Strong, careful, like he was handling something breakable and holy. When the priest declared us husband and wife, Adrian leaned near enough for only me to hear. "Do not look afraid." "I am not," I whispered, surprising myself. And for one impossible second, I meant it. We signed the marriage register in faded black ink.
Claire Wichman Valley.
The name looked unreal, dangerous, beautiful. I was staring at it when Father Donnelly glanced at Adrian and did something strange. He bowed his head. Not a polite nod. A bow. Small, almost hidden, but unmistakable. My breath caught. Priests do not bow to mechanics. Before I could ask, the chapel doors opened and two men in dark tailored suits stepped inside. I froze. They were not dressed for some roadside wedding. Their shoes gleamed. Their posture carried silent authority. They did not look at me. They looked at Adrian. One said quietly, "The car is ready, sir." "Sir." My pulse stumbled. Adrian did not react. "Outside," he said. One word. Controlled. The men obeyed immediately. I stared at him. "Who are they?" Adrian fastened his worn watch as though nothing unusual had happened. "Friends." "Friends do not call mechanics, sir." His eyes met mine. There was almost amusement there. "Claire," he said softly. "Not everything poor comes without power." Before I could press further, my phone rang. "Vanessa." I almost ignored it. Adrian lifted a brow. "Answer." So I did. Her voice spilled sugar and venom through the speaker. "I heard you disappeared last night. Please tell me you did not do anything pathetic." I looked at Adrian standing in sunlight, my husband of 6 minutes, and something fierce woke in me. "I got married." Silence. Then a laugh sharp as broken glass. "To who?" I lifted my chin though she could not see me. "Someone worth more than Preston ever was." I hung up before she could answer. Adrian's mouth curved. The first true smile I had seen. It altered his whole face. Younger somehow. More dangerous too. Outside the chapel a black sedan waited, polished so dark it mirrored the clouds. Not Adrian's pickup. This was no mechanic's car. A suited driver opened the rear door. I stopped cold. "Adrian," he offered his hand. "Trust me." Those 2 words have ruined wiser women than me. I took his hand. The leather seats smelled expensive. The city skyline shimmered in the distance as we pulled onto the interstate. I kept looking from the passing trees to Adrian's unreadable profile. Finally I whispered, "Who did I just marry?" He looked out the window before answering. "A man your sister should have been afraid to insult." My heartbeat turned strange. Excitement and warning colliding. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and the air around him changed. Colder. Sharper. For a moment I saw not a quiet mechanic but something commanding beneath the skin. He answered with one sentence. "Tell them their boss has a wife now." Boss. The word landed like thunder. I turned toward him. Slowly, realizing the man I had married in defiance might be nothing like the man I thought climbed out of that pickup in the rain. There are moments when truth does not arrive as revelation but as architecture. You turn a corner and realize the whole world was larger than the room you had been living in. We drove north for almost an hour in silence, leaving the city behind until the roads narrowed through old estates and iron gates hidden among pines. I kept hearing that word in my mind. Boss. It echoed louder with every mile. Adrian sat beside me calm as winter, one hand resting on his knee, wedding band glinting when sunlight broke through clouds. Finally, the sedan slowed before black wrought iron gates taller than any house I had ever seen. 2 stone lions guarded the entrance. Cameras turned. The gates opened before we stopped.
No keipad.
No guard checking names. They knew his car. My pulse began to pound. The drive curved through acres of manicured grounds, fountains catching morning light, hedges cut with impossible precision. Then I saw the house. No, not a house. A white limestone estate rising above the trees like something old money and secrets built together. Columns, balconies, windows that flashed gold in the sun. I whispered before I meant to. This is not a mechanic's home. Adrian looked at me. No, that was all.
No epalegi. No explanation.
Just truth finally unmasked. The sedan stopped at the front steps where 3 men in dark suits waited. One opened my door before I touched the handle. Another nodded to Adrian. Welcome home, Mr. Vale. Home, Mr. Vale. Every piece was falling into a shape I did not want to name. I stepped out slowly, heels touching stone I was suddenly afraid to stand on. Adrian, I said, voice thinner than I liked. What is this? He offered his hand. My home. Who are you? A beat of silence. Wind moved through the trees. Then he said, a man who did not lie about loving you, only about being poor. I should have walked away. Instead I took his hand again, though now it felt like stepping into another country. Inside the doors, marble stretched beneath my feet. A chandelier the size of a small car hung above us. Oil paintings lined walls older than my family name. Staff moved quietly through corridors, each lowering their eyes when Adrian passed. Not fear exactly, reverence. It unsettled me more. A woman in her 60s approached in black silk, elegant as royalty. Congratulations, Mr. Vale, she said, then turned to me with a softness I did not expect. Mrs. Vale. My breath caught at hearing it spoken aloud. Adrian touched my lower back only briefly, guiding me toward a long gallery of windows. You are pale, he said. Because I married a stranger. He nodded once. Fair. Something about that answer nearly made me laugh. Instead I turned on him. Was the pickup truck real? Yes. The diner? Yes. The mechanic? Also yes. Then what are you hiding? His expression shifted, not cold but careful. Enough to keep you safe. I hated how those words made my heart stumble. Before I could answer, a butler appeared carrying a silver tray with morning papers. Adrian glanced down and one headline caught my eye. Vale Consortium expands Port Authority control. My stomach dropped. I knew that name. Everyone in New York knew that name, though spoken in whispers at charity galas and boardrooms. Vale. Shipping. Finance. Rumors darker than rumor should be. I looked at Adrian as though seeing him for the first time. You are Adrian Vale. Yes. The Adrian Vale? His silence answered. The room tilted. This was not a rich man pretending modesty. This was power pretending poverty. You let me marry you without telling me you own half the eastern seaboard. Closer to a third, he said dryly. I stared in disbelief, and somehow that absurd correction nearly broke the terror. Then he stepped closer, voice low enough only for me. Claire, look at me. I did. Those gray eyes held no mockery, only intent. No one here will touch your freedom. You set your terms. My mind caught on the word freedom. Why mention it unless captivity existed in his world? Before I could ask, voices rose at the far end of the hall. Men in suits waiting, watching. Adrian turned toward them, and in that instant his entire presence changed. Colder, commanding, a king putting on his crown. One man approached and murmured something too low for me to hear. Adrian answered without looking away from me. Tell them the meeting waits. My wife comes first. Wife. The word wrapped around me like silk and chains at once. And I realized standing in that marble palace that marrying Adrian had not saved me from humiliation. It had placed me at the center of a world powerful enough to swallow cities. Power has a sound. I learned that afternoon it often sounds like silence, because the truly powerful do not raise their voices. They wait for the room to bend. I spent my first hours as Adrian Vale's wife walking through corridors that smelled faintly of cedar and old books, trying to understand how a man who changed my tire on Route 9 belonged inside a world guarded by iron gates and whispered obedience. A maid showed me to a bedroom larger than my entire apartment, all cream walls and French windows overlooking gardens stitched with fountains. On the bed lay folded clothes in my size I had not packed. That unsettled me more than the mansion. Someone had anticipated me, or Adrian had. I touched the silk blouse left out for dinner and heard his voice from the doorway. You look like you are planning an escape. I turned too fast. He had removed his jacket, tie loosened, somehow looking more dangerous in simplicity than in ceremony. I am deciding whether I married a liar. His mouth moved, almost a smile. You married many things. A liar is negotiable. I should have stayed angry. Instead I crossed my arms and said the only thing keeping me upright. If this marriage is real, we set terms. Something sharpened in his gaze. Interest. Go on. I lifted my chin. You do not control where I go. You do not use me in your business. And you do not touch my life without my consent. The room stilled. A challenge had entered it. I expected offense. Adrian leaned one shoulder against the doorframe and said, almost amused, My wife is drawing boundaries on day one. Do you object? No, he stepped closer. Close enough I could smell rain still clinging faintly to his coat. I am impressed. Then, to my shock, he extended his hand as though sealing a contract. Agreed. I stared. That easy. Claire, men in my world negotiate over ports and empires. Your terms are refreshingly moral. I almost laughed. Almost. Then he added, softer, I have one term. I hated how my pulse reacted. What? When I tell you danger is real, you listen. There was something in his tone that stripped the room of playfulness. I nodded before pride could stop me. We shook on it like rivals making peace. His hand lingered one heartbeat too long. At dinner I saw another side of him. We sat alone at a table absurdly long for two people, candlelight reflecting off crystal, while somewhere beyond the walls men waited for orders from the man passing me bread. It felt surreal enough to be a dream. Do they all fear you? I asked. Adrian set down his wineglass. Some respect me. Some owe me. Some would rather not test me. And which am I? His eyes lifted. A complication. I should have been offended. Instead, warmth betrayed me. Then the butler entered with a silver envelope. Adrian opened it, scanned a line, and something dark flickered through his expression before vanishing. Problem? I asked. An invitation. He slid it toward me. Black embossed card. The Whitman Foundation Spring Gala. My family's gala. Vanessa and Preston would be there. My throat tightened. No, Adrian watched me. You are afraid of them seeing you with me. I am afraid of becoming a spectacle. He leaned back slowly. Then let them become one. I should tell you I refused. I did not. Because some bruises heal only when witnessed by the people who caused them. After dinner, I wandered onto a terrace where evening painted the sky copper. Adrian joined me without sound. For a while we stood watching lights shimmer over distant water. Then he said, You still think I tricked you? Did you not? I hid my name. I did not hide who I am. I looked at him. I do not know who you are. He was quiet long enough I thought he would not answer. Then, a man who has spent years surrounded by people wanting what I own. You were the first to choose me when I appeared to have nothing. The words landed somewhere dangerous in my chest. Before I could answer, headlights swept the drive below. A convoy of black cars. More than before. Men moving with urgent purpose. Adrian's posture changed instantly. Steel under velvet. One of his advisors stepped onto the terrace. Sir, the council arrived early. Council. Another word from a world I did not understand. Adrian did not turn. Delay them 10 minutes. They insist. Adrian's jaw set. Then he looked at me and said quietly, "Welcome to the part of my life I hope to keep from you." And in that moment I realized the contract we made over dinner might not be enough to protect either of us. Some nights feel like a door opening. Others feel like standing on the wrong side of one. The council arrived in silence, which somehow made it more unsettling. From the upper landing I watched 6 men in tailored black coats enter Adrian's library, as if walking into a cathedral built for secrets. No raised voices.
No dramatic gestures.
Just quiet power. Adrian had changed before joining them. Dark suit replacing the loosened tie I had started to trust. Every line of him sharper now. Less husband and more something inherited. Before he stepped away, he touched my wrist lightly. "Do not wait up. That sounds ominous." "It is practical." Then he was gone. I told myself I would sleep. Instead, I wandered restless through hallways lit by amber sconces until I found the library doors almost closed. Through the narrow opening I heard Adrian speaking, calm and absolute. "The port stays under veil control." Another voice answered, older, clipped. "You bring a wife into this now?" A pause. Then Adrian, colder than I had ever heard him. "Do not speak of my wife as leverage." The words rooted me to the floor. Leverage. My breath caught. I should have left. Instead, I stayed long enough to hear another name.
Preston Hale.
My blood turned to ice. "Hale's debt matures Friday," one man said. "If he defaults, the family holdings revert." Adrian replied, "They were never his to begin with." I stepped back before the floor could betray me. Family holdings. What holdings? I had no fortune. My family barely tolerated me. Yet something in that room had shifted old assumptions. The next morning Adrian found me in the sunroom pretending to read. "You listened." Was not a question. I looked up. "I heard Preston owes you money." "His father does." "And what are Whitman Holdings?" Adrian was still for a moment too long. "Who told you that?" "No one had to." He walked to the windows, hands in his pockets, sunlight cutting silver through his dark hair. "Your grandfather owned a shipping tract on the harbor. It was placed in trust years ago." I laughed once in disbelief. "You are telling me my family hid an inheritance from me over breakfast?" "I am telling you there are reasons Preston wanted your name before he wanted your heart." The room felt suddenly airless. Betrayal had deeper roots than I knew. I wanted to hate Adrian for knowing. Instead, I hated how much he sounded like the only honest person left. 2 nights later, we went to the Whitman Foundation Gala. I nearly did not recognize myself in the mirror. Black silk instead of bridal white. Adrian fastening a diamond clasp at my neck with hands unexpectedly gentle. "You do not have to prove anything tonight," he said. "Then why are we going?" His eyes met mine in the mirror. "Because some ghosts only leave when faced." The gala glittered with chandeliers and old money arrogance. Conversations dimmed when Adrian entered. Not because of me, because of him. People did not greet Adrian Vale. They adjusted around him like tides around stone. And then I saw Vanessa. Her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Preston turned and visibly lost color. For one wicked second, I enjoyed it. Vanessa approached first, voice sweet enough to poison tea. "Claire, we heard about your impulsive marriage." Adrian took my hand before I answered. "Mrs. Vale prefers honesty over impulse." Vanessa blinked. Preston forced a smile and extended a hand Adrian did not take. "Mr. Vale." I had no idea. Adrian looked at him with almost bored contempt. "That is the first truthful thing you have said all year." I nearly stopped breathing. Then came the twist I never saw coming. A banker I recognized from society pages approached Preston nervously and whispered too loudly, "Your extension was denied." Vale Shipping called the note. Preston's face drained. Vanessa looked between them, confused. Turned to Adrian. "What does that mean?" His voice stayed low. "It means your former fiancé has been pretending wealth built on borrowed time." The room tilted with satisfaction and shock. The rich prince who abandoned me was not a prince at all. He was drowning, and the poor mechanic I married owned the ocean beneath him. Preston stepped closer, desperate now. Claire, you do not understand what he is. Adrian answered before I could.
No.
But she will. Music swelled. Crystal glimmered. My sister stared at me as if she no longer recognized which sister had lost. And standing beside Adrian under all that gold light, I felt something dangerous bloom. Not revenge. Something better. Power learned too late by those who underestimated me. There comes a moment when running stops looking like freedom and starts looking like surrender. I understood that the next morning, watching dawn bleed pink over a borrowed apartment window while Adrian's last words echoed through me. The war you thought was about money has always been about you. I should have been terrified. Instead, I was angry in a cleaner, sharper way. Not the helpless anger of betrayal. The kind that makes a woman finally stand up. Vanessa's text arrived at 8. Brunch at the Whitman townhouse. Family only. Bring identification for trust paperwork. The trap was so obvious it almost insulted me. I wore black, not mourning, armor. On the ride downtown, I slipped my wedding ring back on. I told myself it was strategy. My pulse knew better. The townhouse looked exactly as it had when we were girls. All polished stone and inherited coldness. Vanessa waited in the library beside Preston and 2 lawyers. Preston looked wrecked in a designer suit, trying to disguise panic. Good. Vanessa smiled too brightly. Claire, we can settle this as sisters. We have never done anything as sisters. Her smile thinned. Papers lay arranged on the desk. Transfer authorizations. Port control proxies. Legal theft in expensive stationery. One lawyer pushed a pen toward me. Routine restructuring. I almost laughed. Do all crimes come embossed now? Vanessa dropped the act first. Sign it. Adrian cannot protect you forever. There it was. Not greed hidden. Greed speaking plainly. I looked at her and for the first time saw not the sister I had envied but a frightened woman who had mistaken possession for power. You never wanted Preston, I said quietly. You wanted access. Her jaw tightened. I wanted what should have been mine. Then you should have built something instead of stealing. Preston stepped forward desperate. Claire, if the note gets called, we all lose. The word revolted me. I lifted the pen. Vanessa exhaled in relief. Then I set it down untouched.
No silens detenatid.
Her voice cracked. You stupid girl. You think Adrian married you for love? Before I could answer, another voice filled the doorway. She does not have to think. Adrian. Every person in that room froze. He stood in charcoal wool, rain on his shoulders. 2 steps behind him his counsel and my grandfather's attorney I had never met. He had not come raging. He had come prepared, which somehow felt far more devastating. My breath caught so hard it hurt. Vanessa recovered first. You have no right to be here. Adrian's gaze never left mine. I was invited by my wife's trust counsel. My wife. Even now. Even after I left. The old attorney opened a leather folder. Miss Whitman, under Amendment 17 you hold sole voting authority. Any attempt to coerce transfer constitutes fraud. Preston went white. Vanessa looked suddenly very young. Cornered. Adrian finally looked at her. You mistook Claire's kindness for weakness. His tone was calm enough to cut glass.
No threats.
None needed. Papers changed hands. Signatures were voided. Preston muttered something about debt. Adrian answered without heat. Your debt was never financial. Took me a second to understand. He meant character. That hurt him more. When it was done, Vanessa whispered, almost broken. You chose him over your own blood. I looked at her for a long moment.
No.
You left blood behind long ago. She looked away first. Victory should have tasted sweet. Instead, I felt only release. When the room emptied, Adrian and I stood alone among old family portraits and the wreckage of old lies. Neither moved. Then I asked the only thing that mattered. Why did you let me leave? He looked almost tired. Because loving you could not become another form of control. that undid me more than every grand gesture before it. I stepped closer. And if I leave again? His voice dropped. I will open the door. And hope. I laughed through tears I had sworn not to shed. That is a terrible Mafia strategy. The ghost of a smile touched his mouth. You have ruined many of my strategies. Then he did something Adrian Vale, feared by bankers and councils, had never done before me. He asked, "Come home." Not commanded. Asked. I should have answered immediately. Instead, I took his hand and placed it over my heart. One condition. A brow lifted. Another contract? No more saving me by lying. He nodded once, solemn as vows. Agreed. Outside, rain had stopped. Sun broke through clouds over the city. As we walked out together, I realized I was not returning as the woman who married a stranger in grief. I was walking beside a man I had chosen twice, and somehow the second choice felt like destiny.